That was good.
So you thought that you could like just slide in a little later because we're always screwing up and being late, and so a lot of people know that. In the chat, you can tell a lot of people know that. Oh yeah, they're not going to be on time anyway. So I can just slide in about 10 or 15 minutes, and boom, you're busted.
We can start the show again in 15 minutes, 15 or 20 for those who drop in late.
Do a reboot. What do you guys think?
Yeah, take a vote. Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Hello, Adam. Hello, K-Boutique. Let's get it on. Whatever.
Do that again. Let's take another swing.
No, I'm not even going to take another swing
it.
at that. I have no idea what that is. But hey.
Hey, guess what? Normally we have 2, and today we have 3.
And then there were 3.
Yeah, and then there were 3. Who the hell are you, man?
Just the third.
I just turned around and you're like, just here. 30 minutes late is Friat Standard Time.
Yeah, so what, we're on daylight wasting time?
I kind of like that. Hey, everybody. My name's Joe.
I'm
Your
Steve,
name is?
And this is my old and dear friend, Bruce Nelson.
Hello.
Who
Thank you.
who
Good to be
has got. He's a sweet guy. He's talented, and he's got all the brain cells left that I've long since lost.
No, I don't.
Oh, that's where they went.
Yeah, so he's gonna
holding on to
he'll have some things to tell me about things that I won't have any recollection of, and I'll go, oh really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and we want to get into your background and kind of flesh that stuff out. Not only for everybody who's watching, but also for me.
Well.
Because I don't know, when did you and I meet? Within the last year,
You
maybe?
started to tell me about that with our friend.
Yeah, with Bobby.
With Bobby.
Yeah, but we never met.
That's right.
That was the
you had
thing.
my phone number.
I did. Like, I just kept hearing Bruce's name as like, this is the go-to guy for anything you need in terms of guitar setup and stuff. Like, this is the dude.
Yeah, so I set you up for failure. I gave him his phone number, and then you were going to try to have him do some guitar work.
No, I didn't get that from you.
Oh, you didn't?
Probably
Yeah.
didn't even know you yet, right?
It was around the same time,
okay.
I think. Yeah, but your name just kept popping up as you are the guy.
You mean in the 80s?
No,
In the late 80s?
no.
You said you didn't know me yet.
Well, I didn't know you in the 80s.
Okay, I'm lost.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to sit over here.
You know what I want you to do,
the
Steve?
camera.
I want you to try and pronounce that handle one more time. Keauyv. Go for it. Ready?
I have no idea.
Do it out loud. Don't sound it out in your head. It's better if you do it out loud.
Kieduiv.
Oh, it's a V. I thought it was a Y.
There's a Y and
It
a
is
V.
a Y. Oh, shoot.
Kieduiv.
Hey, maybe.
Okay,
Okay, I'll stop.
you show me.
Oh no, I don't.
You're
I just
acting
wanted
like
to
you
hear
know something that I don't, and you're not going to be any better at
No,
it than I.
this
Hey,
is
Scott.
purely entertainment for me.
Oh yeah, well, eat me.
You know what? Cheers,
Cheers.
everybody.
On
Cheers.
pie.
Absolutely.
We've got this really exclusive sparkling water today because we all got shit to do in the morning, early in the morning.
Like, probably best to not tie any on this evening, right?
And we have a lot of stuff to get to, so we don't need any rambling blowhards just pissing valuable minutes down the drain over God knows what.
Like we're doing right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
But so Bruce, what I know about you is that you are the head gear wrangler, guitar, bass tech. I don't know what else you do for Stone Temple Pilots, which is pretty amazing.
That's pretty close. I'm mainly the guitar technician when we tour.
Okay.
But I do build basses for Robert and also guitars for Dean. So
and you've got your own guitar line.
I got my own guitar line now. That's,
You're building amazing stuff.
Thanks. I'm
one of
trying.
them.
Yeah.
Behind Steve right
That's
there.
actually one of Dean's that I stole from the
Oh.
warehouse on my way over here.
Oh,
Because I don't have anything else to show you guys.
so we may get a call
Yeah.
like, any moment. Where the
Yeah.
hell's my guitar?
Yeah. I have my phone's off, so I think we're good for a little bit.
But what we're not talking about is that Bruce and I go way, way, way back.
Pretty far.
And Bruce, before he was working at Tom Anderson Guitar Works.
Yeah.
So you were building. I don't know what your specific task over there was.
I went right into final assembly my first day there. That they had an opening there. Final assembly, and yeah,
Wow.
that was '93.
Wow.
But you and I go back a little farther, which
We
you
go back a little
you
farther.
can't
but
remember.
About the time that you went to work for Tom Anderson was the time that we moved the factory out to Newbury Park, which was a half a block away from Tom Anderson.
Yeah.
In fact, it was Tom Anderson that I asked him, you know, what's the lease the commercial real estate market out there, and he goes, there's tons of empty stuff, and it's going for a song. And I went, wow. So I went out and checked out some places, and there are these buildings that were pristine and clean,
new.
and the area was clean, and they were all empty. So we got a nice factory for a song, and then we ended up being neighbors and being annoying to each other.
And as John says, were you getting Roy coffee?
I wasn't getting Roy coffee. We had a coffee machine there at the
Oh.
shop, but
So Roy could get his own damn coffee.
yeah, yeah.
I remember Roy, like long before I moved out here, I had Tom Anderson guitars in the 90s, and I used to call the shop about, can you make me a different pick guard? Can you, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I called, and Roy was always awesome. And I called one time and I wanted them to do something for me. And Roy goes, what's the serial number on your guitar? And I actually remember it. It was 41696A.
Nice.
I told him that. And he goes, oh, yeah. That's one of our budget guitars we have made in overseas. And I'm like,
What?
he's just yanking my chain.
Oh, yeah. That didn't.
I'm like,
okay.
I paid a lot of money for that guitar.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was always fun to talk to. He was probably why I always felt like I could call and ask for stuff. 'Cause
Hey,
he was
Carlos.
just, ready to jam when you'd call him on the phone.
What a fun place to work.
Yeah, I'll bet.
The
And
best.
that's where you met Bob?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started right before Bob.
We're talking about Bob Smith.
Yeah, Bobby Smith. Sorry.
Bobby is an old friend of mine. I met him in Colorado, and he's been around the guitar making. So I
Wait.
think he worked for BC Rich and Charvel and Tom Anderson and Grosh, and now he builds his own guitars and amplifiers and motorcycles and whatever the hell else. He's
Yeah.
just one of those guys. He does it all, and he's great at it all. So,
Yeah.
so you guys met at Anderson?
Yeah, we worked right next to each other. We both had hair down to here.
Yeah, okay.
Mid '90s fashion.
We all had hair.
Yeah,
down
it
to
was pretty long.
I did too.
here. We had hair to have down to here.
Yeah. And so, so how long did you work at Anderson?
I was thinking about that on the drive over because ultimately it was about 15 years.
Wow.
But at some point I left because I wanted to be a repair guy
Okay.
on the LA scene.
Okay.
That was
Oh, so you wanted to be miserable the rest of
Yeah.
your life? Is that what you said?
yeah, it was short lived.
Oh, was it?
Well, they called
This
Anderson.
sucks.
It was okay. I thought I could be independent and all that stuff, but it didn't suck, but it wasn't like bringing home all the bacon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when there was guys like me bringing over K semi-electric acoustics with the neck broken off. And
That's right.
can you reset this neck?
You still have that?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Oh man.
Okay.
So he was a pain in your ass?
No, it was just that things like that are not the funnest.
Well, I remember one of my, one of the nuggets of wisdom, or whatever that I learned from the guitar shop that I taught at, but I kind of worked in the front of the shop for a while. The guy who ran the store, his name was Herb, and oh, check it out.
Oh my!
Yeah, and Herb just said, you know, Joe,
Nice knob.
the thing about opening your doors to the public is you have to deal with the public.
That's true, man.
And he said that after some like insane guy walked in and like had just yelled at him, you know. Yeah, Joe, that's the thing about opening your doors to the public. You have to deal with the public. So you're dealing with, I mean, you got to bring home the bacon. So it's like whatever somebody walks in with. I mean, that's actually cool.
It's pretty cool.
Where'd you pick that up?
I got this at Emerald City Guitars in Seattle. It was just fun. They had a guy, there was a guy up there that took beaters like this and did sort of like avant-garde things, like put weird knobs on stuff that,
Install a phase pedal.
yeah, weird.
I have a friend like that.
I mean, you have this wire going down into the body
Yeah.
that, and then into there's a like, I don't know, like an old one of those those Gibson amps that looked like they weren't named Gibson, they were named something else. They were this really bizarre looking. They looked like road cases, and the controls look like a microwave oven, and then it's got some old Marshall knob on this pot,
Wow, it is.
and yeah.
Hey, I have to give a shout out to Carlos real fast. Carlos, a couple episodes ago, you were asking where the hell is the 4th installment of the Deliverance
Right.
video series.
Right.
It was because of you we finished that up and released the video yesterday. And I even I name checked you in the credits of the video.
Yeah, actually, he
So, that was you.
he commented on that.
Really? Oh, okay,
Instagram
so he
that-
knows. Oh, okay,
that
cool.
He knows that we did that just for you.
Awesome. Yeah, cool.
See, so like poking us in the eye actually does work.
Yeah,
Believe
yeah.
it or not.
Yeah.
Did you work out of your garage or
Yeah.
something? Oh,
Yeah, I
so that
worked out-
means you've got knuckleheads coming to your home, which is really extra special.
Yeah, it wasn't horrible, but I got a call from Anderson after a little, maybe a year, and they said, hey, one of the guys is leaving for some surgery on the knees. You want to come back and just kind of help? I said, yeah.
Uncle.
Yeah. And
Let me back.
so I think, you know, and then it some time went on, some years went on actually, and then I started doing little tech touring things on the weekends, and then that became a little more, and then I met the STP guys, and then I had to, you know, make a decision like what to do. So that's where I left Anderson and went to the Stone Temple Pilots guys full time, and I want to say that was around the early 2000s.
Man.
The band was on hiatus. Robert and Dean had another band called Army of Anyone.
Right.
I entered in right around there
Uh-huh.
in the beginning, and
And you've been there ever since.
yeah,
You must be pretty good at your job then.
I try.
Man,
I try.
that's pretty great.
What just sticks in my mind is what position at Anderson that requires that after a while you need knee surgery.
I think the guy had bad knees before he got
Oh, okay.
there.
It wasn't it wasn't a particular job.
work-related.
It wasn't a work-related thing. No.
So you
It
didn't
was-
need knee pads to do that task.
No. No.
Hey,
Good thought though. That was.
That's important stuff. Oh man, that's crazy. So that's what got you back in there, and then, so was it STP or working with the DeLeos that was when you had to really make the decision? Because were they saying, we need you full time?
Well, sort of. Yeah, it was like, well, we have the band's getting back together. And
We're
I'm
getting
like,
the band back
yeah,
together.
that was I remember that was 2008. I remember Dean called me and
Oh,
he's like, yeah, we're gonna we're getting Scott back. We're gonna get the band together. We got all these dates coming up. You know, the whole year's packed, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Wow.
And then he calls me up
Oh,
and he says, we need to get
everything retubed.
we need to get everything ready to go.
So that's when you guys kind of reconnected, sort of professionally.
I think it was before that. I may have been during Army of Anyone, but right before that, because yes, we did some touring with Army of Anyone, and I
Right.
want to say that was around 2006, 2007. And
I just remember being really excited that they were doing that, and then they had another opportunity to go out and do it presumably the right way. And
Yeah.
hopefully this will be the one that sticks.
yeah.
So we definitely want to hear more about that a little bit later in the show. But we advertised this episode as with a couple pictures of some late '70s Marshall combos that actually belong to your ass. They're both 1978s.
Yeah.
And one is a 2104, which is a 50 watt, and the other one is a 2103, which is a 100 watt, which you schooled me because I was calling them the 2204 and the 2203.
I was trying to be
combos are
technical
21s.
because, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Most people know the 50 watt is a 22.
So they're JCM 800s.
Most people know.
In a combo form, right?
No, they're actually still referred to as the JMP.
The JMP.
I think
okay.
JCM happened 81.
I
Yeah,
don't know
the
history.
yeah
JCM
the 2103 and 4 and the 2203 and 4 were not JCM 900s yet,
800s.
800s yet. They were Mark II master model,
Oh, okay.
and
So what's
and they came out in 70. Was it 77? I think they came out in 77.
The Masters,
The Master-
actually 76. The
Yeah.
I think you would know this.
Oh,
Dan's asking, are those the same amps that Neil Giraldo loves?
yes.
Is that the one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I used to work on these.
That's what I
amps.
thought. Yeah,
He
okay.
had the 212 combos with. Well, two of my clients had those with the 212 combos.
Uh-huh.
One was Giraldo, and I think his had EVs in them.
Yes.
Oh, that's
That's
right.
he did
Just
that.
to make sure that you would absolutely have to fuse your spine after being his guitar tech for maybe a year.
Yeah.
And the other client that used those was Robin Trower.
Oh, yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hot
Only he
dog.
had, I'm pretty sure he had either I don't think the Vintage 30s were out yet Vintage 30s
Right,
hadn't been released
right.
yet when he was my client. And I think the speakers that were in there were either the 65s or somewhere in the 65 or 80 range.
Was
or
he playing the 2103?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
This is the 100 watt.
Yeah, so
With-
I don't think they had the Sidewinder speakers in them, which were Celestians that attempt at a high-powered, bulletproof, like Fane-style speaker.
And then did the Town and Countries happen in that same time period?
The
I want to
Town
say
and
late
Country
70s.
I think so.
was kind of mixed in there, but that was an amp that wasn't officially released or distributed into the U.S.
Really?
I don't think.
And it was.
I think that was one that came over from the U.K.
I
and-
only know it because of the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing.
Right,
And
I
I,
mean,
think
the-
he was playing it as a big clean amp rather than
Yeah.
the gainy thing like you'd think.
I
he was
think
doing.
either somebody that was touring, somebody that came here from England and brought some, or somebody went to England and bought up oddball Marshalls and brought them over here for sale.
Okay.
And it would have been something like that. There was the Artiste. I don't think the Artiste
I don't
was,
even know what that is.
the Artiste was kind of like the Town and Country.
Uh-huh.
It was like a 2-channel amp with reverb and some toggle switches and stuff. And
Late 70s?
yeah,
Toggle switches?
yeah. Well,
On a Marshall?
see, Marshall was trying to get on board with what contemporary guitar players wanted. And
Here comes Mesa.
and here comes Mesa out of the woodwork, and Mesa only had the Mark One at that particular time.
But you could flex with that.
And yeah, but it was compact, loud, and had lots of sustain and gain.
Yeah, yeah.
And all that, and a high-powered speaker, you know, and they were easy to carry around. So you could tell that Marshall's trying to like, okay, we're about to get usurped here, you know. So they're trying stuff, but
Yeah.
while they're trying to figure out what it is that players wanted and that Mesa had already sort of got their finger on, then Mesa comes out and starts developing the Mark II.
Right.
And by that time, you know, it's like you start playing on an amp like that, and then you go and try to play on an Artiste or a Town and Country. It's just like, oh, yuck, stop. Just that hurts. Stop doing that, you know.
They don't friendly sounds don't come easy.
Yeah, and
those amplifiers.
but somehow
Right.
I've never tried one.
Well, like I'm even thinking about your amps. Like they're grown people amps. Like you gotta like
yeah.
if you bought that and you're like first, second year of playing, you're like, what the hell do I do with this? You know?
Yeah, Scott, something like that. 65s or blackbacks or something. But
So when did you get hip to these amps and go, I should pick up a couple of these things?
Oh, I didn't know.
didn't you just get them because they were fawn colored?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was young, I carried around, you know, a few 412s,
Yeah.
playing stupid little places, little
Right.
clubs.
Right.
Didn't really think that a 212 combo would be a better way to go because this was the look.
Yeah.
And those 212s were off my radar. I think when I got older and wiser, I'm like, oh, those are cute, those little 212 things. And then there's a font, and they're rare. And I'm like,
It's funny
Get
though.
one of those.
Like they're cute, right? Pick up that
Yeah.
100 watt.
Yeah,
Let's see how
not cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, they're like, how much do you think that thing weighs?
Oh.
It's pushing 100 pounds. I
it's
think.
probably
It's-
close to yeah.
It's probably 85.
Yeah.
Yeah. Twins, 85 pounds.
Okay.
So they're about the same weight as a twin, roughly, give or take.
Yeah. It's yeah. That's.
But
a
you
no-go
got
for me.
your-
But you use them as furniture,
Because
basically.
yeah,
But
like,
you're, but
like
the,
this,
the
Yeah.
2103,
nice looking stuff.
the 2103 has the original casters on it.
Yeah, they call them Homa, Homa.
Yeah.
They're gold. I don't know if High Watt used them. I know you're more familiar with
Yeah,
High Watt.
no,
but-
High Watt didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
High Watts was, they were like, we're not going to screw around with those stupid custom casters. We're going to use wooden skids. How about that?
Orange did the same, didn't they?
yeah, yeah. Hey, High Watt's got something figured out there. Just skids.
Yeah. Probably lasted long.
Well,
They actually did.
Yeah.
They didn't slide on a concrete as well as casters, but they didn't fall off either.
so how long have you did you buy both of those combos around the same time?
I'm gonna say yes. Honestly, I'm gonna maybe around the '90s sometime when I was buying things on eBay.
You've had
eBay
that long?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's even a bigger revelation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're probably a few years apart
Okay, in terms of when you purchased
when I purchased them. Yeah.
and then did they just kind of become furniture immediately, or did you actually
Yes.
go through a period of time? You
Did they
weren't using
become
them?
furniture immediately?
Well, because
Were
they're
they pressed into service, or were they
no,
just like
no service.
Yeah, okay.
More looks, more furniture.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I think they're in pretty good condition, and
They are.
And I wasn't a working musician at that point, so no, I think I brought one to a jam with some friends once, but yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. All right. Well, so you this is kind of funny because it's in the video that we shot, kind of the genesis of why you wound up here this week, and
That's right.
and so I'll ask the question now, but it's actually explained in the video that we'll play in a few minutes. What was going on was you had a couple questions for Steve because you're like, I haven't been playing these things for a while. What's the protocol for not screwing them up? Do I need to, like reform the caps and this sort of thing? That's where it kind of started, right?
Yep.
Just in the last week?
Well,
Last weekend.
you had,
I think.
but you had seen a prior Malcontents where we discussed recapping. Was that?
Yes.
Where Steve was firing
so
off.
you were not replacing caps in an amp because yes, they were old, but they really did. You tested them and they did not need replacing. So
Right.
you were steadfast with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I saw that a couple weeks ago, and then last weekend I'm sitting around Saturday morning having coffee, thinking, I got these old amps. I wonder if I should put new caps in these amps. So I texted him. He's like, "Why would you want to do that?"
Well, but you already had the caps. But
Oh, I bought them already. I was ready.
You'd
to go.
already purchased
Yeah, yeah.
them.
Oh
The
yeah.
text I got was, "Do I really need to slowly bring up the voltage?" And when I saw that, I went, "Ooh."
Yeah.
And while I'm reeling him in, I'm like calling Joe. Joe.
Oh, you were waking him up.
Yeah, and shortly after that, I put both of you on FaceTime, and like,
that's right.
okay, we have an agenda.
That's right.
That's where.
But yeah, as soon as he said, do I need to slowly bring up the voltage? I just went.
This is an episode of the
I
Malcontents.
just went, oh my God, what do we got? And so instead of texting him back, I called him. I said, all right, what's the story? And he says, well, I have these amps.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, and the thing you got to understand about Bruce is he's really respectful of other people's everything, their circumstances, their time, their everything. And he's just like, well, I really didn't want to pester you with this. I know you're crazy busy, but I'm like, bring him. He goes, no, you don't have time for this, and blah, blah. No, bring them all over.
You don't understand.
I said, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't
There's
get
no
it.
reason for being these days.
This is like cracking open, the entire jar of Reese's Pieces, like when when you wake up with a hangover and you need something sweet. That was just like, come on, bring them. What are you trying to do? And he says, well, and I said, here's the thing, we need to find out if they actually need to be recapped. And this would be a perfect opportunity for you to learn that particular thing and for us to go through it together and find out, because I would have loved for at least one of them to have absolutely needed a recap, and then we could talk about doing it
and show everybody what it looks like when a cap does its thing.
Sure, and talk about why it did that and all of that.
Actually, you touched on it, but you didn't have an example, I don't think, to show.
That's right.
But
You're right.
Well, so why don't we look at some video footage that we shot?
Yeah.
oh, look at that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
Whoa!
Okay.
What is going on?
We're just geeking.
Twins!
We're just
Twins!
We're just geeking out now. I mean, this is just geek fest material.
These are two.
We got a 2203
2204 right there. So that's
and
the
a
50.
2203.
I think they called them a 2103 and a 2104 because of the combo makeup.
Oh, instead of the 22, they're 21s.
Yes.
That's the combo.
That's
All right, so a
To my
2104 and a 2103, so that's 100 watt, and this is a 50 watt.
Yeah, and these are late 70s, early
78. Both
78.
of them are 78s.
Ooh,
in keeping with the mid late 70s earth tone
Yeah.
vibe.
is that mauve?
They called it
Fawn.
Fun.
And
Look at
and these black back. These are 30 watt. These are 30.
25. Pretty sure the 25. I think the 30s have a bigger dust cap.
I thought this was the bigger dust cap. No, that doesn't. That's right. This is the 50. Okay,
Probably
well,
haven't seen those in a long time.
that's good and
Wait till you
stout.
see these speakers. They're.
Okay.
I think they're
I
think they're Goodman's. Watch that wheel on there. I don't
Yeah,
know what the heck
I'm
that-
okay with that.
I mean, they're labeled Marshall, but I want to say those might be Goodman.
They're either Goodman's or they're a. There was a Fane variation that had that deep fit.
So what's the mission here?
Well, so Bruce calls me up and he says, "Okay, when I should pull out the text and I should just read it because then it's accurate." Morning, I'm replacing filter caps on one of my old Marshalls. Do I really need to slowly bring up the voltage with the Variac for the first power up? And my reaction was just like, all right, hold the presses, stop right there. You're like already, I'm just trying to nicely say, you're already way out ahead of your skis. and if you're talking about some early Marshalls, let's not just go too far into the weeds before we understand what the parameter of the project is,
Right.
or the parameters are, is what I meant to say. And Bruce, being the champ that he is like, well, I know you're crazy busy, and I don't want to. No. This is the you.
Actually, you said we're actually roping you into this now, dude.
We're roping you into this because this is
Poor
not
man.
only my bailiwick, it's the bailiwick. It's the thing that most puzzles guys that get their amps worked on and what they're told and what they believe and why they believe it. And I said, this will be great. We can discuss this. And we can sort of wrap a Malcontents episode around it because it'll be fun. And we'll all learn something. So that's what we're doing.
So we're about to open them up.
We're gonna open. I'm gonna start by opening up the 50 because it's lighter. Here we have 1978, May 18th, 1978. Oh no, this is a V123 or 12AX7s and V4, 5, 6, and 7. So this is a sticker that goes on either a 50 or 100 watt amp that says 5 and 6 or 4 and 5 or 4, 5, 6, and 7 are EL34s or 6550 USA. So they're saying that the amp is shipped with EL34s everywhere except in the US. They go with 6550s. So this is right at the period where they started doing that. And Korg started doing that because of the number of warranty claims that they were getting for defective EL34s here. And they've made that change to mitigate warranty claims. And there would be a resistor change here in the bias circuit. But this is super clean. Now the first thing that you see is super pristine filter capacitors. There is no, these practically look like they're brand new.
They do.
But it could potentially have been changed because if you look at the wires in there, they're just stuck into the ends of the capacitors and not wrapped around. And normally, if you look on the pots, you'll see that the wire goes into the lug and wraps around a little bit, but they don't wrap around on here. This one does, but it doesn't, at the end of this wire, it doesn't wrap all the way around the lug.
Right.
But, so these look like they were replaced a long time ago. And this one also has the 98, and these are LCRs. And normally you would just order those from Korg. So these were replaced a long time ago, and they're pristine. And I don't think they need to be replaced again.
Went away.
Okay, so if you powered it up within a year or two, they don't need to be reformed. And that answers your question, do I need to bring up the voltage slowly? I don't know if you were asking me, do I need to bring them up slowly after I replace them?
That's, yes.
Okay, so the normal question you would ask in an amp that's been in the storage for a long time, do I need to bring up the voltage slowly because it hasn't been turned on a long time? And then somebody would say, well, why don't I just recap it? And then should I bring them up slowly after I recap it? And my answer is always, how do they look? Do they look good? Do they test good? Oh, well, I don't have a test. I was just gonna replace them because that's what everybody says to do. And my answer is always, we test them first. Well within the tolerance range. And the other section is charging a little bit, and then it'll go down, and it'll probably settle out. It might settle out a little lower, or it might, because there's a resistor between this section and this section might pick up a little residual voltage from the other one, since I'm testing them in circuit. And normally I wouldn't disconnect them from in circuit because an original amplifier will have the lugs on the capacitor will have that red paint on them.
Right.
And I don't like to lose the red paint if it's original and they're in good condition. So I try to test them in circuit so that I don't disturb that red paint. But it's already gone. So I'm disconnecting them so I can check this capacitor section out of circuit and see what it does. And there you are. 5% high, right where it should be. And now I'll go back and check this one. And again, right where it should be. It's 1% high. 1 or 2% high. Because those are that good as far as the readings, and all three were replaced at the same time, they have the same date code, and this is where all the current draw happens. These are the ones that are really under load. These are just decoupling caps, and they're under the board. You know what? There's an easy way to. I was just saying, I'm not going to test it because.
I thought that's where you're going. But
I was going
you
to say,
never
I'm
leave.
not going to test it because it's kind of hard to get under the board. But you know what? There's an easy way to get under the board, and that's not to get under the board. It's to loosen the bracket and just pull the thing out. Yeah, this one's good also. All right, let's move. We're going to move on to that. Now we're going to button this back up. We're done here. We're done here, babe.
We're done. So there's
I love your comments, John.
basically Steve, stop banging the amps around.
Yeah, it's the iPhone compression making it sound like I'm dropping it from 10 feet. It's just I'm being just as I'm handling just the way we would handle the new production amps in production. They sound like they're being slammed around, but they're not. They're big boat anchors. They just make noise when you put them on the bench.
Yeah.
And electromagnetic hoist. Yeah, that would actually is a killer idea.
A possible Nelson Fred collaboration.
Yeah.
So we went through the process. Well, you went through the process. We watched it of you going through testing both the 50 watt and the 100 watt and as yet unnamed 73 Marshall is a super lead.
Yeah.
That we can talk about down the road. And each one of those, it took about an hour to go through them. And so we'll release that material on the YouTube channel down the
Later.
road. We just had to edit this down so we could get back to flapping our gums on the show.
But besides what,
Well, I want to make this point really fast. That I think you really wanted to find a cap or caps that
I was
needed
hoping
change.
for it too.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. I would, besides that you think I'm looking for an excuse not to change them, I was honestly hoping that out of 3 of these, at least one would be in dire need of filter caps, and so we could talk about the delineation. We could talk about where we think it's gone over the line, and yes, we should do this under these X circumstances, like
Yeah.
you saw on my concert amp. I didn't do it because I just don't use the amp enough, and I didn't want to do it. Well, if I was ever going to use that amp the way anybody that was gigging regularly would use it, maybe I would consider doing that. But under the circumstances, and I said in that video, that's not justification of enough for me to bother, and they still test good, so no. But in this case, I was hoping, all right, we're going to have one here where I can show not only that I'm not always contrarian about that, but here's how to do a good job of it, and go through the whole process, like bringing up the voltage. See, I don't do that because we don't do that in production. When we complete an amplifier and it goes down the production line and then it gets powered up, we just turn the power on. Because we're used to doing it that way, we know what to expect. When you turn the power on, the filter caps charge. There's a little jump in the power transformer because it's developing a magnetic field. And it's developing a big instantaneous field because it's charging the filter caps, which are charging for the first time.
Yeah.
And if anything is amiss, there's 3 or 4 different fuses that will blow, because we do have a variac, but it's set to full voltage, and the variac has a fuse, and there's an isolation transformer, it has a fuse, and the AC input to the amplifier that's under test has a fuse, and the DC power supply voltage has a DC fuse. So there's 4 fuses in there. We don't need to carefully bring everything up and wonder what's going to happen. We just like, if there's going to be sparks, we want to see sparks so we know right where to look and what to correct in
Yeah.
a production amp. And
Yeah.
it happens so rarely,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. On somebody that's out in the field working on 15 different amplifiers every week, yeah, they're going to be cautious and, look to see if there's maybe a
You don't know the
short.
providence of where this thing's been,
Right,
how it's
yeah,
been
and
treated,
maybe
where
there's
it's stored or
maybe
placed.
there's a partially shorted primary and or secondary in the power transformer that, I've seen transformers where they work okay at a certain voltage, and then when you bring them up to full, then there's an insulation breakdown that finally there's enough potential for the voltage to jump that gap, and it goes. I've seen that plenty of times. So there is a legitimate reason to variac the amp when you put it on your bench, but not necessarily because of new filter caps. When the capacitors are produced, how an electrolytic obtains a positive and negative terminal that's how they charged it. After the capacitor is made, they apply a charge to it,
How much?
the voltage of the capacitor.
Oh, well, okay.
So if it's
That
a
makes-
50, if it's a whatever the voltage capacitor is, they apply a charge to the capacitor, and they've already manufactured it with one terminal labeled plus and one labeled negative. But they're not polarized electrolytics yet. They're not polarized electrolytics until you apply a voltage, a DC voltage across those terminals. So when through the production process, the terminals are, like I said, they're already labeled, they're marked on the can, so that's the way that you connect the terminals.
Yeah.
And if you're a goofball and there's one coming down the production line that's reversed, and you put the terminals on it, it'll take a charge, and then you'll have a capacitor that will appear to blow because it accidentally got a negative charge. How often does that happen? Probably 1 in a billion or a million. But that's what determines the charge. So you don't really have to tippy-toe around new capacitors to charge them. We do it 100 times a day, every day, in our factory,
Okay.
and that's just normal. The reason that you would want to bring it up slowly is if it hasn't been operated for a long time, and you don't want to damage the capacitors by having a big inrush when there's been not deterioration inside the capacitor, but a chemical process, electrochemical process inside the capacitor that needs to be undone and can be undone by reforming.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then for sure that capacitor will go boop
Well,
when you apply
it's,
the voltage.
it's a part of the testing process.
Yeah,
Which is what you're advocating for all along. Anyway,
Right.
Actually doing real testing
Right.
process.
so if I was a repair guy, and I was a repair guy, when I would get something in like that, there would be an ammeter, so the power supply would be disconnected from the load, and an ammeter would be connected between the power supply and the load, the rest of the circuitry in the amplifier. So there would have an ammeter where you could monitor how much current was being drawn by the power supply. And then you would bring up the voltage slowly, and you could see on the ammeter, if the current spikes, you slow down or you stop.
Yeah.
But before you do that, you check the capacitors with a capacitor checker. And if it gives you the correct capacitance, then
You can proceed.
you can proceed.
Yeah.
If it reads a short,
Again, that's testing.
if it reads a short, you replace it.
Yeah.
If it reads open, you replace it. If it's spewing guts, then yeah, you replace it.
Yeah.
You replace it for a customer. If it's for me personally, and I've seen this, the little
Well, your
pressure
concert
bead.
had a little bit of that
Yeah,
on one of the caps.
a little pressure
filter
bead coming out of there, but it isn't damaging, then I leave it. And why? The pressure bead means that the capacitor had gotten hot at some point. And the pressure inside the capacitor builds when it gets hot. It gets hot because it's trying to reform itself. And if you try to do it with too much voltage and too much current too fast, then it would get hot and it would try to save itself by blowing out the
Yeah.
little pressure valve in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a rubber seal that's there to seal the components in there. So if the seal just breaks down from age, and that happens,
Oh, wow.
then the capacitor itself may be capacitating, it may be fine, but if the seal is broken down enough, and it's just PVC, soft PVC, like the rubber feet on your amp are soft PVC rubber,
Yeah.
synthetic rubber,
Yeah.
that's what's sealing the guts in the can from the outside air. That can just break down over time for environmental reasons. Humidity, heat, caustic environment, salt water, all this, depends on where you live geographically in the country or in the world,
Right.
is going to determine how much of a problem you're going to have with those seals.
Yeah, we don't know. Our feed looks like it's frozen.
Blew a seal.
Yeah, but hopefully we're still streaming.
Yeah, that happened a bunch of times on the last show, and I thought that I cleared that up by resetting. So we might take a little break, and I
We're
might.
good now. We're good now.
Yeah, but if it happens one more time, we'll take a little break, and I'll reset the router to make sure that doesn't keep happening.
So you're talking about like you're really going into detail about capacitor, how they're manufactured and why you don't just toss them out, right?
Right.
You also sent over a couple different graphics to make some points. Would this be a good time to look at some of that stuff?
Right, because we often get, not that often, honestly, not that often, but if you're following the show and you look at our videos, you'll see every once in a while somebody pops in and go, oh man, just replace him. Why not? Why not just, you have it open, why not just do it? And there's a lot of good reasons why not.
Oh,
And there is research and data to demonstrate that. And if I can go research it and look it up and read it and comprehend it, anybody else in this line of business can do the same if they are inclined to not be, as you said, intellectually lazy?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was listening, when we were last talking about this, it occurred to me that there's kind of two levels of argumentation going on here. And you are actually spending all of your time in what I would call the second level. When actually your primary beef is what I would consider the first level.
Okay.
And I'm just arbitrarily making these levels. It's something I'm making up. You're talking about caps and why people should use testing equipment and use their brain to go through this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people latch on to that argument and then want to kind of,
push back,
box with you a little bit there. Mm-hmm. But I actually think, having listened to you talk about this enough times, that really what this is you have an ethical disagreement with people who would label themselves and charge money for doing a job such as being an amp tech and not do their due diligence with something such as, look, you actually need to test these things before you just throw them out. And then when you actually challenge them on that, and all you hear back is, well, they're old, so they should be replaced. You're like, well, give me a little more information. Yeah. And then when there is no more information behind that, I think that's upsetting to you, because if you have a kind of the ethic where you're like, you know what, if you're serious about doing a job right, you leave no stone unturned. So if you're the kind of person who would say, I'm just going to replace caps because they're old, and there's no actual, like, they're not doing testing procedures to see if they're still good or not, it's kind of like, well, what else are you just kind of not
well, see, now you're
brain?
putting your finger on the point, which is, if that's your argument, then every resistor, capacitor, and pot in the amplifier needs to be replaced because they're all the same age. So where do you draw the line? And why do you draw it electrolytic capacitors? And you don't have a good answer for that because you don't know why the line is there or who established this artificial line and on what data that was misinterpreted to establish this imaginary line. And
because I feel like,
so I feel like I keep explaining it, but because I'm just saying it, then somebody else could say something different. So I decided to go a little deeper and find some information where I can show you on paper what I'm talking about.
what would be what should we look at first?
The graph.
The graph. I think this is the graph.
This is the graph. Now, this is a capacitor manufacturer's graph that shows how the lifetime specification of capacitor is established. And when you read the specifications of the capacitor where it says the lifetime is X, this is telling you what that actually means. And it does, And it's proving that it doesn't mean the useful life of the capacitor. It means the test performance of the capacitor under certain conditions. So you see on the left vertical column, there's 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2, and 2.5. 1 represents the let's see, it was a couple of days ago that I looked at this. Represents the percentage of current. If you see up there on the left, there's a ACR.
Right.
That's the ripple current.
Okay.
So the
Am I
ripple
reading that right? Like AC divided by AC ripple current?
Yeah. And so what is a capacitor will have a rating voltage, capacitance, ripple current, and there'll be a surge specification, which is usually 50% over the voltage rating, and so on and so on. But what we're looking here at is just temperature versus ripple current.
Okay.
So when you read the lifetime specification on a document for a capacitor, and we'll show you one in a minute, it'll say something like 5,000 hours. This is a long life cap. It'll last 5,000 hours.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you divide 5,000 hours by the hour, the number of hours a week that you use the amp? No. And that's what I think people do. 5,000 hours, if you dig deep down into the documentation and look at all the asterisks and the footnotes, 5,000 hours is, according to this chart, how long that capacitor will maintain the specifications that they spell out in the document, being its capacitance and its voltage rating within the percentage of tolerance that they establish for it, and let's call it, just for the sake of simplicity, plus or minus 10%.
Yes.
Some are plus or minus 20, some are plus 10, minus 20, some are plus 5, minus 10, whatever. But for the sake of just discussion right now, we'll call it plus or minus 10%. So what they're saying is at 110 degrees C, not F, C. 110, by the way, 110 degrees C is 100 and, it's like 18, well, 100 degrees C is the boiling point of water, which is 212.
Right.
And 110 degrees is 18 degrees Fahrenheit higher than that. So,
So it's over the temperature of boiling water.
to 18 degrees over the
degrees.
temperature of boiling water.
Yeah.
Which means what? At the temperature that the boiling water starts to evaporate,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
For 5,000 hours. Okay?
Yeah.
At 0.1, 100% of its rated ripple current. So what it's saying is you can't even touch this capacitor while it's in this test mode.
Right.
And for that 5,000, after that 5,000 hour test, we guarantee that the capacitor will still be within plus or minus 10% of its rated value. That's what they're telling you. And how you know that's what they're telling you? There's two other salient things about this graph that you can know. The gray area above everything,
Yeah.
that's the no-go zone. That's the point at which you cannot exceed the rating of the capacitor. For the 5,000 hour test, they're already at maximum ripple current and maximum temperature. So you can't go past 1 or the capacitor will blow. All right? So now let's just drop down 10 degrees C.
Right.
Let's just drop down from where water is evaporating to just where water is boiling, 100 degrees C. And what has happened when you dropped down 10 degrees C? Anybody? The life went up 5,000 hours. It's now 10,000 hours. And what happened to the
Well,
gray
it
zone?
went beyond 10,000 hours, actually.
What happened to the no-go zone? It extended up probably another 10 or 15%. You can run it past its ripple current rating because the temperature went lower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go down to 60 degrees C. 60 degrees C is about 140 degrees F. 140 degrees F is where you put your finger on a tube and you get burned.
Yeah.
And it'll make a blister.
Yeah.
Okay? You still can't touch this capacity.
Yeah.
But what happened at 60 C? Look at the gray area. You can practically run it up to double its ripple current rating.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened to the lifespan? 200,000 hours?
Right.
Again, these are continuous ratings, running at continuously at 140 degrees F at 75% over, or like 1.75 roughly over its ripple current rating for divide 200,000 hours by years, and it's the number of years that represents is 18. 18 years. It'll run 18 years at 60 degrees C
Continuous.
at 1.75% of its ripple
Yeah,
current
continue.
without changing its specification more than plus or minus 10%. Okay, now let's go down to, they don't show it, but let's go down to 50 degrees C. 50 degrees C is about, 70, 80 degrees, something like that. You guys can look it up if you want. At 50 hertz, you can practically double its ripple current, and that 200,000 hour figure will go to 400,000. So 18 times 2 is 36 years now. Again, we're talking about, okay, let's just say we're at the 18-year mark with 200,000 hours. That's still at its maximum temperature and current and voltage. All right? Now, let's talk about what happens inside a real amplifier. Can get rid of that now. What happens inside a real amplifier is that filter caps in the main power supply part are usually wired in series.
Oh, this is great.
And the reason they're wired in series is because a lot of capacitor manufacturers don't make capacitors that are high enough of a voltage. There's not enough demand for it to make like 600 volt caps, 700 volt caps.
Yeah.
If you've got like a power supply that's in excess of 450, 500 volts, then you're going to need 2 capacitors in series to handle that. Because let's just say that you buy 300 volt caps and put 2 in series, that gives you 600. Well, the power supply is only running at 500. Yeah, it's only running at 500 until there's a line voltage surge of 50%. And then the surge voltage goes past the 50% rated capacitor. Now you can blow a capacitor, right? So this is why you would put 2 in series. What happens when we put 2 capacitors in series? The current slices in half. So if you've got a 100 watt amp, and if you look at the back of your 100 watt amp, it's got a 1 amp DC fuse in it, say it's a Marshall, it'll have a 1 amp fast flow DC fuse on it. That 1 amp fuse is 1 amp because that's the point at which it blows. That doesn't mean that the power supply is running at 1 amp, it's running at 500 milliamps. When something happens inside the amp that causes it to draw, the power supply to draw more than 500 milliamps, a shorted power tube, a shorted diode, possibly a shorted capacitor, then the power supply will draw enough current to blow that 1 amp fuse. So that's why that fuse is 1 amp. If it's got a 1 amp DC fuse, you can assume the power supply is running at roughly 300 to 500 milliamps. Okay, so let's say it's 5. And let's say that the capacitors that we were talking about in the previous example had a ripple current rating of 500 milliamps. Well, there's 2 of them in series. So each of those capacitors is running at 250 milliamps.
Yeah.
So now the capacitor is running at half of its maximum current rating, at its half of its maximum voltage,
Yeah.
or even if it's at its maximum voltage, at 40% of its maximum temperature. And now you start extrapolating the lifetime out to 30 to 40 years.
Right.
And that's the effective lifespan of an average capacitor in an average amp. And that's why there are so many old amps out there that don't necessarily need the filter cap replaced. Why would you then replace the filter cap? Lots of good reasons. It sat for 10 years and somebody turned it on and blew a filter cap. You're in a region in the world where the environment is caustic, or the temperature is such that
Those
the-
rubber gaskets are
the
deteriorating.
rubber
Yeah.
gaskets give up and start crackling and falling away.
Yeah.
Those kind of reasons. Those are things that you can observe. But even if that seal is starting to deteriorate, you could still technically test the capacitor as good. But you're not going to want to leave it in there because you know that it's going to go bad, and that's why you would recap it. But those are all things that you can measure and observe. Now, if you take a newer amp that say it was built in the 90s or the 90s or the 2000s or something, and you go after the filter caps, then you're really not doing your diligence at all, because a lot of things start happening. With newer amplifiers, you're using newer types of capacitors that maybe have better sealing materials for the gasket part, are designed to use less PCB space, which is why they stand up and not lay down sideways
Right.
like the old style
The days of
axial
old.
capacitors, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this little capacitor has got this little rubber, this little, soft PVC.
What's that called again?
Gasket.
It's just.
It's
like-
the
it's
sealing
the pressure
gasket.
valve.
Well, it's
No, no,
the
no.
sealing gasket that is soft because it serves the purpose of a pressure valve. Now, underneath that gasket, you don't see it on here. You'll see it on these capacitors. You won't be able to see it unless I show you up close. Let me see if I can.
And I'm gonna cover my eyes. So
And make that, yeah, okay, you see
Okay.
the little X stamp on the top of those capacitors?
positive.
That is the pressure release.
Ah,
They've intentionally weakened the top of the capacitor, so if the temperature builds up,
It's a
It-
scoring.
it's
It's
scored.
not positive.
It's scored so that it
Oh.
will blow out the top,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah. Instead
Because
of
they've
goop up the
improved
board
the
on the
quality
bottom.
of the sealing gasket underneath, so it's less likely to fail. The other thing with a capacitor that's mounted this way is you don't want it to fail down,
Exactly.
because it could
The
damage
board's
the
right there,
board,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So you want it to fail
Right.
up. I could say something
know.
about that, but I'm not going to.
I knew what you were
wasn't the
thinking.
old Pillsbury dough things like that too? Didn't they have? a
That's
thing?
exactly what they were.
And you hit it, and
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. Same deal. All right. So, on a capacitor like this that doesn't appear to have a scoring or any kind of a valve, usually under the gasket, they have a little circular area that's weakened,
And that's where the junk will pooch out through there.
and it has a little score underneath there.
Oh, okay.
And it will develop enough pressure to blow past that little piece of PVC.
Yeah.
So that's how it will prevent the rest of the electronics from being damaged by it internally shorting. It'll give itself up. So for the people that are afraid of, well, you have to replace the caps because I might blow my power transformer. Well, no, that's
And
a false argument. That won't happen
I don't know
because
if you guys. This is interesting because on one side we have that rubber gasket and that is not present on the other. So it's the same
Right.
fundamental design. Is there's the scoring. The weak spot is on one end of the capacitor.
right.
So on the old layouts, is that on purpose as well? Like when you're thinking about the layout of the board, like, well, let's make sure that where the end of the cap is, there's nothing that it's going to gack all over and take
Well,
out.
generally, it's pretty random. So
Okay.
Yeah, you wanna orient these components on the board so that so if they blow out, in a, but you can never tell. I mean, if you take a 120 volt amp and plug it into a 240 volt outlet, this thing will go way beyond blowing its pressure valve. It'll blow the guts entire out of the can, and they will spread themselves all over the inside of your amplifier.
And you've seen
it'll
this?
unravel like a toilet paper roll, only it'll be all aluminum. So it'll start shorting out everything inside the amplifier. That's where you have to turn the power off.
Wow.
You think?
But that's an extreme condition.
Does that stuff smell?
Oh yeah, you can definitely tell the burnt resistor smell, and you can definitely tell the smell of a capacitor that's blown its guts because it smells like dirty socks.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where a burned resistor has that sort of burnt varnish smell, a sort of a phenolic smell.
Uh-huh.
It's a totally different thing. You can just like as soon as you open up, all right, where's the cap guts? I
Yeah.
know there's cap guts in here somewhere.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that about mounting capacitors this way on a board is the board is generally flow soldered, so there's a wash that happens on this board after it's soldered to clean off all the contaminants and stuff.
Yeah.
And these components are designed so that that wash can be dried out. It goes through a wash, and the next stage is there's a high pressure, just like in a car wash, high pressure air blows across the board that blows any moisture out from underneath the capacitor.
Okay.
That said, I have seen
That's pretty tight under there.
assembly houses that don't do a really good job of snapping these capacitors all the way down and leaving a bit of a gap there. Some manufacturers, some amplifier manufacturers do a little extra diligence.
But what about the tolerances of the capacitor makers? Like maybe the edges of the caps aren't completely flush.
Well, there's definitely
Right?
manufacturing tolerances that the mechanical tolerances of the component, that have to be adhered to. And of course, when you design the circuit board, you have this big solder pad back here, and how much solder that pad absorbs could potentially lift the capacitor up off the board
that's
and
right.
stuff. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff has to be very carefully worked out in production to make sure that doesn't happen. Some people, like I know Paul Rivera, for example, he puts a little sealing bead along the bottom of these capacitors to make sure that the cleaning solution doesn't get stuck under there.
That's
An added benefit of doing, I don't do that.
pretty cool.
I don't do that because I do serious heavy duty diligence on the people that are doing the contractors that we use to flow out of the board.
You have to handle it one way or the other.
That's exactly right.
Paul's doing it one way, you're
He's
doing
doing
it
it
another.
while he's, being extra anal. One of the interesting sort of side benefits of doing it Paul's way is that that little extra bead that keeps that moisture out, it also keeps gas out. It's got a gas tight seal, so it keeps oxygen out. So over time, it does help probably a little bit insulate the seal underneath from external oxidation
And deterioration and all of
premature
that.
deterioration. So if you're one of these guys that takes a 2000 era Rivera amp and recaps it, what have you done? Number one, you've unnecessarily recapped it unless you tested each capacitor to see if it's even bad. And somebody might reasonably argue, well, if you have to take the board out to test the caps, and since you have it out anyway, you might as well replace them.
All right.
And I have a problem with that logic, because then what you did by replacing them, after you took the board out and just justified in your mind what you're going to tell the customer about why you replaced them, had to take the board out anyway to test them, so you might as well just replace them. But you didn't replace the bead when you put the capacitor back in. So you actually replaced really good quality capacitors in the amp with something maybe or maybe not as good as the ones that were in there, and you didn't replace the sealing bead. Then you've made it ultimately less reliable than it was before you got your mitts on it. And
And it's not the manufacturer's intended design anyway.
that's
at
right.
that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're replacing caps on a 10 to 20-year-old amplifier on that justification, then I'm sorry, I have a problem. Now, if you're one of those people and you're reading the same specifications and docs that I am, and you want to interpret them differently, and you'd like to discuss it, I would be happy to have you on as a guest, and we could debate that. But I haven't heard anybody say anything like that yet. All I've heard is, "Wow, why don't you just do it?" Well,
It's easy, it's cheap, and they're old.
hey, on my car, the tires, it turns out that the tires that are on the car were not the original factory tires. The dealer put aftermarket tires on it so they could put nice wheels on it, but the tires weren't really that good quality. One of the tires got a nail in it a couple of times and had to be repaired twice. And in the process, I ended up accidentally driving on a flat tire for a mile and damaged
Oh, the wall.
the wall
Yeah.
of the tire. And there was another tire that I hit a curb and put a little cut in the wall. It was in a part of the wall that was really thick and wouldn't cause any risk on the tire, but the other tire that had the wall deteriorating because I drove on it flat needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
So between that tire and the one that had the little slit in the wall, and the fact that I went to 3 different tire shops and they all went, "Why do you have those nice wheels on there and those garbage tires?" So I went, all right, screw it. We replaced all 4 of the tires
Yeah.
to have nicer tires.
Yeah.
Have a nice car with nice wheels. Why would we want crap rubber on it? So we replaced those. So in the same context, now let's look at replacing cheap capacitors with good ones. Well, first of all, you got to know that they're cheap ones. And there are brands that we find that consistently underperform or just plain suck.
Yes.
So in certain circumstances, there would be a justification for replacing the garbage ones with good ones. But there are cases where you don't necessarily know. And these days, remember those good old-fashioned axial ones that you want to be able to buy these to put in your amp because they fit that way? It's designed to use those.
Yeah.
You want it to look at more or less original, so you buy F&Ts, or you go to one of these parts suppliers like Mojo or Antique Radio Supply or one of these other places, and they sell aftermarket similar quality parts. They also offer their own branded aftermarket parts. Is that a problem? It's only a problem if the guts inside the capacitor that they branded with their own brand is a piece of garbage or good. And I've seen parts and tube suppliers rebrand capacitors over the period of time that I've worked with them, where some of them were great and some of them were garbage. And the way you know that they don't really want you to know what the specs are is when you ask for the specs, they go, "Well, we don't. That's proprietary information. We don't want you to have that. Just they're good, and if you have a problem with them, then you can return them to us."
Yeah.
No reputable capacitor company says, no, you can't have the documentation. Every reputable company for capacitors, you can go online and download 20 pages of specs on their product. That's probably why there's so many Chinese knockoffs, because they have access to all this really detailed data about test specs, voltages, currents, graphs, mechanical design, engineering stuff, the
Yeah,
dimensions,
yeah.
and the mechanical tolerances, all of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're going to use good quality materials when they're building it. So, for now, I see that Antique Radio is now offering their own brand of aftermarket capacitors called mod capacitors, and I see that some of the guys online that are doing capacitor replacements are saying, "Oh yeah, these are good capacitors." Well, how do you know? How does one know? I will say, refreshingly, this company provided all of their specifications for the part in pretty complete fashion, similar to what you would normally see on like Sprague, Nichicon, Aerovox, Panasonic, all the real reputable brands. You'll see the operating temperature, the surge voltage, the load life, and interestingly, they actually call it what it is, load life, not how many hours the capacitor is going to last in your application.
You are away from the microphone. Can't hear anything.
It's load life at 105 degrees C with 100% rated voltage. They're telling you something there. So they're feeling pretty confident that they're making a good quality capacitor, but even though they're telling you that, they're not telling you who made the capacitor. So the manufacturer of the capacitor could state those specifications and miss them at the same time, and we've seen that. So who actually makes the mod electrolytics, we don't know. I haven't contacted them to ask them, and if I did ask them, they'd probably say, "Why do you want to know?" And I would probably say something like, "Well, hey, I'm doing a YouTube show, and I kind of want to shoot you some, some kudos, some heads up. Hey, these guys are actually having these sub-manufactured by a really reputable capacitor company, so you ought to be able to rely on them." And then they might go, "Oh, well, in that case, yeah, they're made by, Panasonic or Nichicon or something, or F&T or whatever." They might say that. They might not. Who knows? However, some of these aftermarket capacitors are made by some of the worst offenders in the reliability department. So you just never know. And again, that's why you don't trust just that, "Oh, look, they're round with the wires coming out the right ends. Cool." And they're reasonably priced.
And they're blue.
And especially if they're very reasonably priced, you can be sure that they're always made offshore these days anyway. It's not so much that they're made offshore, but made offshore by whom?
Yeah. Well, do you rest your case for now?
I think I rest my case for now, but part of my case is also that I'm not here saying don't do cap jobs.
Right. I think you really wanted to do a cap job on.
I did, but I also wanted to shoot down what
The belief on the street is.
yeah,
Definitely.
well, like we talked about what I've come to call the FDS.
Oh yeah.
Why did end users feel that they need to have this job done? What is the impetus? Who's telling them that this should just be done without any without any gray matter applied to it? And I've come up with one little theory, and Joe's got another one. My theory is FDS, Final Destination Syndrome, for you fans of the movies Final Destination, where things just keep getting worse and worse and stuff until people are dying and you're driving down the street and a piece of pipe goes through your windshield and through your forehead. You just don't know what's going to happen, so you just want to avoid anything possibly happening that might be bad, but you don't really know what is bad or why it would be bad. You just have this unnamed fear that you want to try to get around. But the problem is, if you're not using a good quality capacitor to replace one that was probably way better than the one it got replaced with, you haven't solved that problem. You just made it worse. That's that's one of my sort of ways of sort of describing what I think is wrong with that whole scheme.
Yeah.
You had a decidedly more, probably politically nicer and
don't know
more
if it
focused
is.
sort of take.
No, I just think for a lot of people, boy, I really haven't been on the forums much in the last decade, but I used to spend a lot of time in that world, and it just seemed to me like there's an awful lot of action and energy being expended in the name of like making what you have like individual. You know, it's kind of related to consumerism in a way. Like you know, it's like people just spinning their wheels, like and not being able to leave things alone, right? It's like, yeah, I think I need to get my tube screamer modded, you know, or yeah, you know, I found this 73 Marshall, the 73 Super Lead, and you know, oh yeah, I'm taking it to my guy to have it recapped, you know, because you can't just let it be what it is.
Yeah, I got to do all
You have to do all this stuff to
all
it
the
to
right
make it
stuff.
yours.
I did all the right stuff.
Or I'm gonna pick on you a little bit, and exactly what you were talking about. Like I've done it a lot, which is you, like you were saying. Yeah, I was just sitting on the couch. I was like, yeah, there's a couple amps here. Yeah, they're kind of old. Maybe I should just have them recapped.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, because it's something to do.
Well, and that's
just something to do.
the word on the street. It's like we think we know. Oh, I heard that we need to do this. This needs to be done after they get old. You know, yeah. I don't have any scientific. I don't have any of that knowledge.
Yeah, well, I didn't either, and it's funny because I was on that exact same train until I met this joker.
I worked at a repair shop where one of the other repair guys in the shop took in a mid-70s twin reverb, and this was 78, 9.
Okay.
Yeah, right around there. So the amp was under 10 years old. And this guy thought he's going to do a great thing for the customer. He wasn't operating in bad faith, I don't think. He just thought, I'm going to do a great job on this amp.
Uh-huh.
He replaced every capacitor and resistor in a Fender Twin Reverb, an 8-year-old Fender Twin Reverb.
Man. And like
charged, and he used good quality capacitors.
in 1978 financial terms, how much did that cost the
I think
client?
it was probably about $350.
Then?
Yeah.
Ooh, I would have been pissed. Oh.
Yeah, because the amp itself probably cost about
Because
that. right?
that's another point that I've seen amp tech people say, "Oh, just do a cap job. It's not that expensive." And I'm going, well, if you're the tech and it's your amp, and you're not charging yourself labor, yeah, the components aren't that expensive in and of themselves. But if you're just like a working guitarist, you know, and you get a $300, but like that's a lot of bread for people, you know, who are.
But this tech thought, I'm doing this ace job for this guy. It was a relatively new shop that was started by some friends of mine, and they asked me to join their team, and I did for a while, and then I bailed later. But they were they wanted to build their reputation as a quality repair shop. So this guy kind of took that ethos like way over the line and he recapped and re-resisted. See, I think the reason people don't re-resist their amps is because it's just too stupid to say. But he recapped and re-resisted the amp and gave it back to the guy, and he was so proud of his work, and when he handed the guy the bill, the guy just lost his shit.
Yeah.
And
That makes
I
sense.
brought it in for power tubes.
Yeah.
What the F is wrong with you?
Right.
And it blew this guy's ego so bad that the only way that he could respond, because he was really a defensive dude anyway,
Yeah.
is he gave the amp to the guy, tore up the invoice and said, "There, no charge, but don't ever come back here again." So not only did he destroy his reputation, but he tried to turn the thing back on the customer and try to lay a bunch of guilt on him, like, you just really disrespected my expertise and blah blah blah. And I sat and watched that, and I went, dude, I told you were going overboard on that. And he just like went, "Hey, I did a great job in his aunt, fuck him," and he went back into his shop, and away he went. I have seen that happen many, many times. I've seen it happen where the workmanship was really nice, which this guy had done, and I've seen it where the customer got it back and it was an absolute rat's nest full of junk parts.
Okay. Well, here's a good one on the guitar side of things. And Steve, we need to be cognizant of what time it is. We got like a half hour before we got to split. So, growing up in Denver, there was this vintage guitar shop called Golden Vintage Guitars over on Colfax. And the first time I went in there, like it's crazy to actually think back, like this actually happened. You could walk into the shop, and I remember there were like 450 Strats hanging on the wall. There were like 360 Strats, you know, and like, whoa, I finally get to hold these things, you know. And I walk up, and 2 of the 50 Strats and like 1 of the 60 Strats, you look at the neck pocket, and somebody had epoxied.
Oh,
Yeah. And I asked the guy who ran the shop, like, huh? Like, why are there multiple vintage pieces here with this? He's like, oh, and he named, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a prominent repair guy in Colorado at the time. He's like, yeah, in the 70s, he used to think this will increase sustain because you're taking these bolt-ons and you're making it whatever. You're basically turning them into set necks.
Yeah.
But it was crappy job, just like gloop.
Like
Like,
you could see it from 5-10 feet away.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah, man.
Ugh.
And you're like, oh, this guy just hacked these things. And like we've talked about, and then took money for it.
Oh,
You know?
Yeah.
Like, dang, man.
Well, I mean, I saw a guy take a 63 335 to a repair shop in Hollywood that is no longer there, and to get the pots cleaned, and the guy at the shop said, "These pots need to be replaced." And I was working at Valley Arts at the time, and when you clean the pots in a guitar like that, you took the nuts off,
Yeah.
and you put surgical tubing on them,
Yep.
and drop the whole assembly down so you
I've
can pull them
replaced
out
the
hole,
assembly of a 335 before. That's
Not
surgery.
this shop in Hollywood. They cut a 4-inch diameter hole in the back of the guitar and patched it with a piece of pickguard material when they were done.
No!
And this guy brought the guitar over to Valley Arts. It was his first trip to Valley Arts, and he walked in there, and he was just completely verklempt and in a state of shock. This was like a week after he'd picked it up, and he'd gone round and round in the shop, defended their work, and he just like left there, and he brought it to Valley Arts. "Is there anything that you can do?" And they were like,
yeah.
he threw away the piece of wood, you know.
Oh, and even
But that's really sick shit.
Yeah.
Now you
What?
have kind of an, it's almost like an ovation. Remember the ovation guitar?
Yeah.
last
Well, going back to this whole thing, it was just when I called Joe after Bruce called, I thought, okay, we're actually going to get to do one.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of disappointed that we didn't get to, but we had a lot of fun with it, and we had an opportunity to we dragged Bruce into our little nightmare, and we got him to bring one of the guitars that he made for Dean DeLeo, and
So again, let's bring people up to date who weren't here when we first hopped on. Our buddy here, Bruce Nelson, is you guys have known each other for 800 years, like going back to the 80s.
Oh, he's got some story that we got to hear from him. It's a short one, but we got to hear from that. But please continue.
About you guys meeting?
Yeah.
Well, let's just start there.
All right.
You mean your apartment?
Yeah, because I don't think I remember.
It's good. I had a feeling you wouldn't remember. I'm gonna say it's.
Or I might.
and
Maybe
why
I'll
is that,
remember after
dude?
you tell the story.
Well, I look different in 1985, 1986.
Yeah, we all had hair then.
Yeah. I used to bring my Marshalls to Stevie to get retubed, and I think you put a master volume in a super lead I had at the time.
What do you have to say for yourself there, Fred? No, I'm kidding.
I'm trying to think which apartment it was. Was it the upstairs?
I think it was upstairs.
And he was modding your stuff.
Yeah. And that's okay. I think the part of the story you want me to hit was I remember you saying, "I'm going to start an amp company. I'm going to build my own amps."
Well, if that was in my apartment, it would have been just at the point where I stopped working at the repair shop and started doing the design work for the prototype 2150 in my apartment.
I don't remember if you had that built or not. You could have. I just don't remember.
Okay, here'll be a test that would help you determine the stairs that you went up. When you went in the front door of the apartment, was there a dining room table on the right? When you went through the door?
On the right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was it up above where where Trader Joe's in Studio City,
I don't remember.
or was it on Whitsett?
Whitsett rings a bell,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Well, if it was on Whitsett, that's where I would have moved to a 2-bedroom apartment, so my 1 bedroom could be my repair shop, and I probably did a couple of mods there to raise a few bucks.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you heard of this guy? Like
Yes.
how he's the guy to go to?
Yes. Because all my buds on the block, can I name their names?
Sure.
Oh, that's fun.
It's like
I'll only disavow the ones that.
I think Kirk Helly was the first
Oh, okay.
guy. He said, "You got to bring your Marshall to this guy," and I don't know. He was first. I don't know who second was, but there was Mark Knight and
Right.
Kyle Stevens,
Right.
and we were all buds. We were all
Right. Well, Kirk was the first one. I'd worked on his first amp when he was 13.
Kyle Stevens, Bang Tango.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Mark as well. Mark Knight.
And who?
Mark Knight.
Wait, do I have Kyle's amp right now?
Yeah.
I have Kyle's.
He's got a deliverance. Yeah.
Yeah, at my place. It's actually Kyle's. Yeah, that's funny.
So you were the secret, there was like, you don't tell anybody.
He's
gotta
an amp whisperer.
Yeah. And I just thought of this today too. There was another guy in town that we knew of that had a very similar name to you. His name was Steve Furlot. You ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Okay. He was on a little bit more of the pro audio or studio, recording studio side, but he
I
liked it.
actually remember seeing his name in the credits of a Steve Vai record.
Yeah. So he had been inside my amp as well.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And he used to make house calls. He came to my house
Oh, wow.
once or twice.
Shark Air, yeah, Kyle Stevens.
Yeah.
Who we are still close buds.
Yeah. I talk to him every now and again.
Yeah. All those guys.
Actually, we all are. We all
Yeah.
talk to each other.
Although Mark, we hadn't seen each other in a long time, so he didn't know what I looked like, and they played a gig,
Ah, right.
and so I went down to see him play, and so I was talking to Kyle, and I saw Mark, and I said, "Who's that with? Who's the girl that Mark is with?" And oh, that's his new girlfriend. I went, oh, okay. So they went up and played, and so I started chatting up Mark's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her who I was, and she, oh, it's really great that you came down. So we're just like yakking and having fun.
Yeah.
And then Mark came up behind me, and I'm chatting and giggling with his girlfriend, and he said, "Hey, what's up?" And I said, "Why don't you go find your own girl to hang out with?" And his face just went like all the, like a guy that's going to commit murder. Like his eyes went blank, and he was about ready to nail me. And Kyle was there, and he burst out laughing, and he grabbed Marty. He goes, "That's Stevie." And he goes, "Holy shit! I was just about to pound the life out of you." And I that might have been a risky move, but
That was pretty risky.
You know what? Respect. That's a good one. That's a good one. Wow. Because you're fully expecting him to recognize you.
no, I wasn't actually. I was kind of hoping that somebody would
You had a
come
death
and
wish?
save me from getting my jaw broken.
Oh, man.
But I figured I could run. But through all of this, you and
Kyle?
no,
Dean?
the
Shecky?
Richie.
Richie Mazzetta.
Richie Mazzetta, the other guy who he's actually the guitar tech for Sting's guitar player.
Right.
And-
Dominic Miller.
Right, and you guys would like sort of trade gigs every once in a while.
Yeah.
Or Richie was doing STP for a bit,
Yes.
and then you were doing like Rod Stewart or something.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of that. So we've all sort of in this journey, our paths keep crossing for different reasons and with different artists and all that, and it's always a blast. But when Bruce came over one day with a guitar player, he said, "Oh, I just finished something for Dean. I just happen to have it in the car. Oh, bring it in. Let's check it out." He's like, ah. But he didn't know what a Les Paul Jr. fiend I am. And he brought out this thing, and I picked it up, and I just went, "Oh my God, everything that I like in a guitar is in this guitar."
Yeah. You've got the touch, man.
Was that the blue one?
Yeah, the
You
blue
were there
one.
that day too.
Yeah, I played
and
the blue one.
Actually, I had seen it before, and I told Joe about it. And so the next time you came over, you brought this, and I said to Joe, "Hey, check this out. Check out what's going to happen."
Normal, like.
And it's not even the kind of
Yeah,
guitar you
no, no.
like, but I said, "Hey, check this out." And he's probably going, yeah. He picked it up and he played it, and he goes, "Oh man, it just had
Well,
this
actually,
thing."
your guitars, that guitar in particular, I remember, this has happened, I think, 3 times in my life. Somebody hands you a guitar, and before, like, as you're going, yes.
Yeah.
Something about how the neck feels, and the weight of the guitar, and the finish that you feel, like, oh yeah.
That's what happened to me with
know?
my 55 Junior.
Oh,
Just
okay.
as soon as I put my hand around the neck, I just went, "Mine."
Yeah.
I'll think about
Mine's.
playing an E chord on it later.
That's true.
So let's have a gander at this thing.
Yeah. I don't want
So what did you bring us? I'll grab it.
This happens to be.
Oh, jeez. It is so light. I kind of went like
Yeah,
this 'cause
yeah.
I expected it to be.
I'm eating this.
This is. Well, it's already got road rash on it.
Yeah,
which is
this
cool.
this was completed. I'm gonna say about 5 months ago. Maybe longer. So it's had some live shows on it. So it's
Did you relic it, or is that?
Dean. This belongs to Dean. I think he did most of it, most of the relicking. I kind of aged it, so it's not so shiny. Maybe it's a little
Well, it's a
worn
little checked.
looking. Yeah, checking.
And you can see a little of the grain in the lacquer.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
you're into
this
the-
is definitely his. He did that.
Yeah. Okay.
and it's a set neck guitar.
Yes, it's set now.
And you
Doesn't
have
look like it,
you
but-
have this roasted maple thing that
Yeah.
you kick that you're on. You kind of turned me onto it because I didn't really give a crap about it one way or the other, but there's something about it. And then the fretboard is just something interesting about
Actually, every piece of wood on this is roasted, which is tempered, and it's treated. It's a heat treated thing. Knocks all the moisture out, knocks all the wet sap and all the crap that deadens wood.
Everything
in a
that you're
tonal
going,
thing.
a vintage instrument has finally dried out.
You're right. That's exactly the. That's
We can do
exactly
this
the thought
now.
on that.
Yeah.
And it makes it more stable in the touring environment because you're in a different environment every single day, and guitars
That
neck's
sounds
smooth.
so good, just sitting there.
And those strings are kind of dead. I just pulled this out of the warehouse, so these are not new strings.
It really, when I pick it up
Yeah,
and I play it, it really has just so much of what my 55 Junior has. Only
Your
it-
55 is a really special guitar.
it
too.
is, but so is this. You've got these interesting anchors. This
Yeah,
tailpiece with
those
these
are locking.
locking anchors, so that the bridge doesn't.
Yeah, and when you change strings, it doesn't.
Probably the
fly.
biggest advantage of that is when you change strings,
Yep.
the thing doesn't fall off.
It's a
on
big
you.
advantage.
And you're under pressure when you're at a gig and you need to change strings, and you don't need to be
I'm changing a lot of strings every day.
crawling around backstage in the dark trying to find a tailpiece that
Yeah.
surgery
that
yet?
slid under a rack system
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, right. So
It just feels like play me, play me, play me, damn it! Don't be a wuss.
When did you start building guitars?
it's
Really building them top to bottom?
probably about 5 years ago when I started making the bodies.
And I'm sorry, I just want to bring everybody up to date who wasn't here at the beginning of the show. You started working at Anderson Guitars, and you were in final assembly from day one,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
And you worked there for a long time, and they build flawless guitars.
Yes,
and
they
you
do.
were a part of that environment.
Yeah.
And were you building guitars on your own before that?
It was more like buying parts from other
Warmith
source.
and stuff?
Yeah, Warmith, that kind of stuff. Whoever I could find that was, known to be good.
Okay.
And putting things together for some of my repair clients.
Okay.
And then it just kept progressing a little in that. And so now today I'm making the bodies in my shop. I have the neck blanks made from someone that does it on a CNC machine.
Okay.
I do the fretwork to the necks and put it all together.
And where?
Painting, everything.
Okay. And obviously the setup, which you're
Yeah.
brilliant at. Where do the your neck profiles come from?
Like what you just said and what you just said. The 50s inspired. Oh, right away. I'm going to say 50s because there was a thing, as we all know, we've held 50s guitars.
Yes.
And then somewhere around 60 or in that, they started getting thinner.
Right. Yeah.
But they also
I like
weren't
thicker.
necessarily just a clinical C shape. There's this kind of a shape to them. It's not V. But
This
it's
is
like
actually a pretty soft V, but the 50s guitars did have less shoulder, and
Yeah.
some people would call that a
But
V.
it still has a bat feel, but it hasn't got too much shoulder on it, so that
Yeah.
dinky little mitts like mine can fit around
The
it
shoulder
really
seems to
comfortably.
get in our way, I think. My flavor of it.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have heard me talk about him before with my Esquire. He took my Esquire, which I loved because of what it was and how long I've had it and all that, but there was things about it. And when I'm telling Bruce, I wasn't really telling him what was wrong with it. I was just telling him things about it that he had already observed while I'm talking. He did to me with guitars what I do to people on amps.
Yeah.
I already know what you're going to say, but please continue, and then I'll tell you what it really means,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he goes, well, we'll just do this, and we're just going to do this, and we're just going to do this. We're going to do it, and then it's going to be right. And
You were going, whoa, horsey.
and then he started, and we could do this and this. And I did say
Some of it.
I did say, whoa, 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 whoa. How about the stuff that we just really keyed on first? Let's go do that. And he did that. And when I got it back, he says, well, those the tuners could have a better gear ratio. And I'm like, see, now you're talking about the point where I don't give a crap anymore. I give a crap about how it feels right here,
Yeah.
and how I get to navigate it and what happens when.
But
I'm
I
done.
remember when you told me the list of things that you had talked about, and there was a little bit of reticence, like, well, what if, like if you do a lot of changes and then it comes back and you're not happy with it, you're kind of like, well, which things do we undo?
Yeah.
Let's shrink the list.
Yeah.
Let's play it when it's done, and then maybe we can go further.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
when I got it back, it
incrementally.
was so fine. I lost any interest in going any further after that. It was just like
Well, that's the fun thing. when
became such a go. It was already like had a special place in my heart, but it became this. Now it's a really go-to guitar. I'll grab that and I'll take it anywhere, and
Yeah.
I won't feel like I'm gonna flub a gig or not be able to perform very well because it's got these. I won't. It's not like that anymore. It's a grab and go.
Yeah. Well, so you also do Fender style instruments.
Yeah, yeah.
And so where do the neck profiles come from
Same
on
thing.
those?
Same thing. I
While
think
he's explaining that, give me that chord.
the coily one.
No, you answer the question.
Okay.
He can get the chord.
Again, 50s. 50s necks
this.
seem to. Are we plugged in? Yeah. There you go. It's just there's a little more depth
Right.
this way.
Uh-huh.
I say more, but the older 50s necks had more depth,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I like.
But it isn't really dense here and here.
I have a 57 Strat, and it's a more pronounced V.
yeah.
And it's deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, than this guitar.
But see, I can play a guitar like that because it hasn't got the shoulder that's preventing my fingers from wrapping around the
Yes.
neck, so that I can play a D.
I need to bring my 57 in, actually.
so I can
should.
play a D chord with my thumb on the F sharp.
Oh, yeah.
And I can do stuff like that. I can do that on this guitar. I can't do it on everything. So I have this actually connected to what is essentially now Dean's rig, which is a deliverance module going into an LX2
Oh
power
my gosh,
amp.
I didn't even notice that. I should.
Really? You didn't notice?
I didn't notice. Am I in the way here?
No.
Oh, you got a close-up camera on that?
Yeah, you got
Okay.
another camera.
Okay. That is a sexy little rig. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, so it's a deliverance module in a Syn 2 with an LX2 power amp, and the other module slot Dean has no use for it, so there's nothing in there. It's just a blank door on the other slot. And that's what Dean's been touring with for the last year now. And according to him and according to Bruce, he's pretty damn happy with it.
Pretty damn
So-
happy.
And this is the guitar that he's using to the
Oh,
rig.
that's right.
So I have it set up now where with the guitar going into that preamp, going into the LX2, and we're only using one channel at LX2. It's going into the power load, which is the reactive load with the IRs in it, and that is going directly into the mixer here that goes out to the stream.
Wow.
So I can play directly out to the audience.
There'll be
with
a
this rig.
test
No.
in 10 minutes.
No.
Come on, you're a guitar tech, man. Oh, by the way,
You lost me at stream.
we're gonna hopefully get together again and do like a rig rundown.
We need to do that.
Yeah. That'll be
Right,
awesome.
right.
So we'll detail that, like actually Dean's real rig.
And his 73 Marshall he brought over when we opened it up. There was
yeah.
a bunch
That's a whole
of
other
mysteries
project,
in
yeah.
there that we're going to explore later on. But
And I want to say, guys, you guys have asked some questions and stuff, and we're kind of on a tight deadline tonight to get in and out. We'll go through here and answer questions that we completely ignored and were assholes about in the next episode, right?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Because there's a couple of good ones in there, and they require too much verbiage on my part to slide through today. But just
Don't
hit
hit
that left
Right there.
standby
Just
switch.
that one.
Yeah, just
Okay.
that one, and then I'm gonna switch to the stream input so you can hear it out there and we can hear it in here, and we'll see what it sounds like. I didn't spend a whole lot of time setting up the sound. I just used the rig that I normally use, and let's see how it goes. And so Dean's gonna go, who's been playing cheap trick shit on my guitar? See, this thing does it all. You have a shot at
There's
it?
actually a little more.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You have a trick going on
I
here.
think. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. What
This will split the pickups.
that splits the
Yeah.
both of them?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's and that's for his ease of one pull will split both at the same time.
Uh-huh.
But it's going to depend on where you're at.
Uh-huh.
So you just select whichever pickup you want.
Right.
So
Right.
it's now a single coil.
Check that out. Lawler Imperial pickups, is that what you were saying?
Yeah. What?
What?
So you don't use any particular kind of pickups, you use a lot of different things, right?
No, I only
You only use Lawlers? Oh,
yeah.
really?
They're a home run on every pickup that every model that they make. It's a home run. They're so touch sensitive. Sorry.
Fernando, you're very kind. Look at his comment is sweet baby Jesus. I'm humbled. Let's hear what Joe's whacking at over there.
That might still be in single coil if it's pulled up.
Ah.
Can you play that piece of music that is on the beginning of the Malcontents shows?
How's it go? I can if I heard it again. How's it go?
It's like you ripped it off of the. That sounds about right. And I found out later, actually, because he knows what a punk rocker I am at heart, he actually copped that off of, he modified it off of the,
Wider shade of.
it was actually
right.
Dickie's version of Nights in White Satin.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, not wider shade of pink.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a
I
really
gotta hear that now.
they
Yeah,
called
you
it,
do.
They called it Nights in White Satan, but
Yeah, of course.
but that was the deal.
How did you do this?
I
Weighs
know.
nothing.
It's so light. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
I've got some pieces to choose from, and I just picked a light one because he recently got on a light guitar kick, so that was the impetus to just go as light as possible.
Amanda says, now I want to pierce my ear and break something. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly
That's good. I'm glad you did that.
Carlos asked a question about the sag control because he's really familiar with the Sin 2 system, and I have it set kind of high. Well, I have the gain actually turned down really low on the module, so the sag setting that I've got on there is just arbitrary. When we were setting up, getting ready to do the show, I didn't really dial it in. I just went, how about here? We had the Strat plugged into it at the time.
Oh.
So I was just turning it up until it was really, with different guitars, the amount of output of the guitar pickup determines what triggers the sag control on it. So a lower gain guitar, you have to turn the knob up farther. So I just turned it up until it was starting to blink, and like I said, Joe was playing the Strat, so I was kind of fiddling around with it, and then I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
And then we plugged
Yeah.
in this guitar, and so that's just the setting that it happened to be at.
We didn't do a sound check.
All of that said, this module is modified the way that I modified Dean's module,
Oh.
and the Sin 2 as well, and it does have a slightly different sag profile than the stock one. So that's what's going on there. It's the module itself is a tiny bit sweeter than the stock one, and the Sin 2's sag behavior is a little bit more reactive and adjustable than the original one. It's a design change that I had done a while ago after production started and pitched it to them, but they were too busy with other projects to give a crap about that at the time, and then COVID happened and the upgrade never took place. But every once in a while somebody sends us one and we do it for a very small little fee, and not really to make money, but just because it takes time to do.
Yeah.
And we have to receive it, do paperwork, complete the process, and then pack it and ship it back out. It just takes time, so we do charge a little bit just to do that. But how much it's worth it to do, I don't know. It felt good, and it sounds nice, and it kind of actually the new versions of the Deliverance module have that update in it.
Oh, okay.
But the Sin 2 production units haven't had that sag profile updated yet, because we just haven't gotten around to it. But
Yeah.
of course, Joe actually plays guitar all the time, so he sounds like a guitar player playing it as opposed to me.
All I've played for the last 2 weeks is bass.
Oh, really?
I've been.
And you're an amazing bass player as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank you. I've been on a video game soundtrack stuff.
Oh, sweet.
I need a new bass,
Oh,
Mr. Nelson.
let's do that.
Yeah, dude, you are incredible.
Thanks.
This is an incredible guitar. So that's 2 incredible guitars that you have built that I've played. That doesn't happen that often.
And
You're the
Bruce,
man.
and honestly, Bruce really didn't want us to hump his boots too hard on this because he's already
Never
got
heard
a
that
bunch of
expression before.
a bunch of instruments that he's got to complete. On top of the fact that he's got the STP thing going on
Yeah.
all the time, so
Yeah.
he's not somebody who's like dropped everything else off of his palette and has focused 100% entirely on guitars. He does them when he has the time, when he feels like he can focus and really do the job that
But
he
how-
wants to do, and that's like
Yeah.
there's a special thing that you do that's not just luthier putting guitars together kind of thing.
No,
You have your
no.
head wrapped around these essential things about the feel and the touch and the lightness and all that I've never seen anybody do. That's really a special thing to me.
Gotta thank Tom Anderson. I learned everything from him.
Well,
Tom was the first guy that I ever heard talk
Impeccable
about
guitars.
Yeah.
talk about the moisture content of the wood, and had his own oven thing set up that monitored
There's-
all
there's-
of that.
Yeah.
you may not choose to play Anderson guitars, but I've never met somebody who doesn't go, that's just a perfect
Right.
guitar. It's either it's not for me or I love them, but like you can't talk smack about a Tom Anderson.
That's right.
guitar.
The opening or when VHT was a new line,
Right.
you were down at Brower showing. You were dressed up nice, looking slick.
Did he take a shower?
Yeah, I think so.
Did he comb his hair?
Yeah.
Did he put on a suit jacket?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think it was denim.
Denim?
Yeah, it would have been.
It was denim. It was like what do they call it? A Canadian tuxedo? I don't know. Anyway,
all denim. That's
Anyway.
like this with the jeans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I went in that day because I wanted to. You said, "Oh, we're going to be doing this opening thing for the amps," and so I went in there, and I wanted to try the power amp and the preamp, and I pulled for the first time. At Brower, I pulled an Anderson off, and I went immediately. It's like what you just said. Oh yeah, and you plugged me in. And I just did a few chords, and you're like, yeah, this will do this, and then blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, how much are these? And I'm like,
Yeah.
back then it was a lot of money.
Prohibitive. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Tom Anderson. And then years later I started working there, and that was a fun time.
But so, where do people find you easiest in the nanosphere?
I've got Instagram, and that is it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't like. I just don't like that. I don't know. I'm not there yet.
He's not ready to do that yet.
Yeah, I'm not ready. I'm a one man.
Can
show.
people order guitars from you though?
Yes, you can
And they
just
can-
contact me at my Instagram account, which is
Okay.
Nelson Guitar Works.
Okay.
All one word, Nelson Guitar Works.
Oh, and by the way, when we posted the placeholder for this show, no, it was the Deliverance video that you just posted, which is doing great already. By the way, I was surprised by the number of views it's getting already.
Oh, cool.
You commented,
Oh,
"Rad T-shirt."
yeah, man.
Seriously, because I've got one your size.
Oh, I was.
I didn't bring it. I was going to, but I didn't. I wasn't able to get back to the shop before the show.
It
But
looks very
next time you
vintage.
come by, yeah.
Very vintage looking. I like it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we got you down for a,
Cool,
a
cool.
medium.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got to get on the road. So that's it. Fort Pitt.
Thanks for hanging out. We had a great crowd, and you're
Yeah,
always a great
man,
crowd.
that
And
was
thanks for the
good.
questions. We will get to those questions. We will review them in the next show. And the next show is going to be the second week in December, and we'll figure out what other kind of mayhem that we can unleash on you at the same time. But hey,
Because why aren't we doing the show next time that we would normally do it? You're doing what? Okay, it's a secret.
no, I've just got everybody's just got stuff to do, and it's the
We're
end.
all busy.
It's at the
We're
end of the.
all
It's the
busy.
end of the year. We're just trying to close out the end of the year,
Scott,
and
hurry up. I have to poop, he says.
okay. Well, you're,
All right, all
you're
right.
gonna go,
We love you
Bruce.
all.
Do you know that
thanks
guy?
so much for coming to hang with us.
Thank you for having
I know
me.
you don't like sticking your face in front of a camera.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't either,
weird.
but you did great, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you were able
Come
to
back
come
again.
and hang.
Okay.
Please come back again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do some more stuff.
Wonderful. All right.
All
we're
right.
out. See y'all soon.
Get the hell out.